Okay guys, our next episode is The Survivors, and this is actually the second time I'm recording this review. I went into basically an 8-minute review on this thing, and only to find out after I had finished that for some reason it didn't download to my computer. So I had to do the whole thing over again. Technology sometimes, but what can you do, right? Well, this episode is number 51. And it originally aired on October 7th, 1989. It was written by Michael Wagner and directed by Les Landau. Now, the plot begins when the Enterprise responds to a distress call from a colony on Rana IV, which was reportedly under attack. But by the time the Enterprise arrives, the inhabitants of the planet are dead, all except 2 people, which is very strange in and of itself. So Riker and his away team find an older couple there named Kevin and Rashawn Uxbridge, but there's really no explanation of who attacked the planet or why these 2 survived. And a short time later, an alien warship appears and fires on the Enterprise and then retreats. Now when the Enterprise tries to pursue, the warship outruns the Enterprise, and Picard then orders the Enterprise back to the planet. Now this time he and Worf visit the couple on the planet, and when they return to the ship, the warship reappears, and it's more powerful this time. And it has increased weaponry, and the alien ship forces the Enterprise to retreat. But Picard decides to send the Enterprise back to the planet an hour later, only to find the warship gone. And based on his hunch, Picard decides to beam down to the planet once again and informs the Uxbridges that the Enterprise will remain in orbit as long as they're alive. Now, as expected, the alien warship reappears, and this time it destroys the Uxbridges' home and the couple with it. Now, for the next 3 hours, Picard and the Enterprise wait in orbit, and suddenly the couple and their house reappear on the planet. Now Picard beams them to the Enterprise and uncovers the truth. Kevin Uxbridge is actually a Dowd, and that's an eternal being with great powers. He's not human. More than 50 years ago, he set aside his powers when he met Rashawn and fell in love with her. Now a few days before, the Husnak, which were a race of a hideous intelligence, attacked Rana IV. Now Kevin's beliefs were that he didn't want to fight under any circumstances, but he did try to use his powers to chase the Husnak away, but his actions only angered them. Now when they obliterated the colony and killed his wife, Kevin basically went insane and killed all the Husnak everywhere, the entire race. Now his shame for this deed caused him to try to trick the Enterprise into leaving. But with no law to judge Kevin by, Picard decides that he can return to the planet and recreate his house and his wife, and basically leave them alone. Now, a side part of this episode, but related to the main story, is the fact that Deanna Troi is hearing music in her head, and she just can't get it to stop, until it drives her to the point of insanity. Basically, she can't even sleep. And here you can see in this picture, Dr. Crusher is doing everything she can to help poor Troi. And we find out the reason why she hears this music, it's actually music from a music box that was in the home of the Uxbridges. And Kevin placed that in her mind because he saw that Troi was beginning to suspect the truth of who they really were. And he wanted to block her ability to concentrate on anything else except this music, to basically leave her incapacitated and unable to help the crew. So that was the reason that poor Troi is suffering in this picture. But that is the end of the episode. Now, Les Landau, who really liked this episode that he directed, he felt that the location was just a great part of this. And he said it not only made the audience happy, but the crew as well. Because you're basically, with the Next Generation, tied to shooting indoors quite a bit on sound stages, and it gets quite monotonous. So they were lucky enough to go to Malibu and had a beautiful summer day shooting this episode. Now Michael Wagner, who wrote this episode, was an executive producer very briefly on the Next Gen. basically between the second and the third season, he was asked to come aboard and left soon after and was replaced by Michael Piller. But the reason for that was really because he was not used to the way things ran behind the scenes. Even the technical guys chimed in with their input on the script, and it just didn't work well for him, unfortunately. But I think his job of writing this episode was done very well. I was really entranced by this episode from start to finish. There really isn't a dull moment. It's a great mystery trying to find out, why is this couple the only one who survived? Why is it an elderly couple? And what information are we missing here? Comment below if you kind of suspected what the answer was before they revealed it at the end of the episode. I wonder how many of you did. And what your thoughts about the whole Troi situation were. Maybe that was a big clue for you. But I thought it was really well done. And there are a couple familiar faces in this particular episode. The actress who plays the Mrs. Uxbridge in this episode, you may have seen her in a couple other movies. Her name is Anne Haney, and I saw her in Liar Liar. She was the secretary for Jim Carrey, and she has a pretty great turn in that one. And I also saw her in a TV movie in the 80s called The Night They Saved Christmas. Jaclyn Smith was the star of that one, and she played the housekeeper in a very brief role there. But she's had a long career and has done a lot of great stuff, and it was kind of fun to see her in the Next Gen episode like that. And John Anderson, who played Kevin, this was one of his last roles before he passed away, but he did a great job in this one too. So great acting in this episode, great writing, and I think the location really benefited this episode too. It took it from being just another B story to really rising above and making this stand out, for me at least, in the third season. So that's my thoughts on this episode. Comment below what you felt about this, and I'll talk to you soon. I have a little PS fact here, guys, before I really go. Now, don't take this as gospel truth, but I found this on Wikipedia, and you always, it's a little suspect, the information, but I read on there that this episode is inspired by concepts from the Society of Friends, which are the Quakers. Now, the phrase special conscience is part of Quaker theology, and that refers to the fragment of God that each of us has within us. And the pacifism, the ethics, and the lack of action and response are also part of their theology, which you can see in Kevin Uxbridge. So I never really thought about that while watching this episode, but you do see some parallels there with Quaker theology with Kevin Uxbridge. So interesting little tidbit there from Wikipedia. Take it for what it's worth. And yep, just wanted to share that. Thanks, guys.